don't think that bicycling is working quite as well as you'd hope.
We can shift our economy to high-paid jobs, to jobs that have a real future by shifting our economy to renovating our streets, to renovating our sewer systems, our treatment plants, our wastewater systems, by having water reclamation, by having the infrastructure repaired throughout our city, and to do that all within the environmental world in which we actually see out here today. Here's what we're proposing to do in the city attorney's office. We have an infrastructure attorney whose name is Tom Zeleny, and he is starting to conduct meetings with the various city staff, appropriate city staff, to put together the most precise list of infrastructure improvements that we need in the city. And then we are going to propose to the council that we present that to the voters in November for a decision of whether or not they want to in fact fund the kind of infrastructure improvements that we need. Now, stepping away from it in a way that I think is not, it's not something I can sign off on as being legal, because there is no controlling authority to that effect, and I believe that the state appellate courts are moving in the other direction in terms of tightening up the debt limit law. But secondly, there is also, I think, an alternative, which is that, as you were mentioning before, one of the alternatives that we could consider is to do a thorough conditional assessment of what all the needs are and actually develop a list of all of the important infrastructure renovations, improvements, maintenance, deferred and all that, and actually present that to the voters. That's another legal option. You could do that in November and do this in a much more comprehensive way. I'm suggesting that simply from the point of view of if you were to go to the trouble of having to vote of the people, you could do that as an option or some subset of that.
I'm here again today to ask for your support on behalf of our infrastructure upgrades, this time on the item before you. As you know by now, this financing will mean vastly improved conditions for our residents, and that's why I'm here today. I want you to know and be assured that we carefully crafted this financing transaction. In fact, the independent budget analyst has reviewed the item and recommended in favor of its adoption. All that I've ever asked or expected of the city attorney was consistent, written, and timely legal advice. I truly take no joy in pointing out that once again, the city attorney has failed to live up to this very reasonable standard. So if the council's assured we acted responsibly in crafting this transaction, I think it's important that I detail for you how closely we worked with the city attorney's office to get here today. From the moment this financing was contemplated, our financing team worked alongside Mark Blake, one of Mr. Aguirre's top aides in the city attorney's office, to craft this financing mechanism. At no time did Mr. Blake caution against the transaction. In fact, just the opposite is true. Mr. Blake prepared and signed the ordinance that's before you today. I'm going to repeat this clause so that everybody understands how and why, up until this morning, the city attorney agreed this transaction was completely legitimate. Whereas the city is authorized to undertake the actions described in this ordinance pursuant to its charter and the Constitution and other applicable laws of the state of California. If the transaction was illegal, as Mr. Aguirre is incorrectly suggesting today, why would he allow one of his top deputies to have prepared and signed this ordinance? The answer is clear. The transaction is perfectly legal and commonplace, and Mr. Aguirre knows it. Further, the DPWG, or the Disclosure Practices Working Group, of which Mr. Aguirre and Mr. Blake are a part of, unanimously approved the transaction before you today. At no time during those discussions did the city attorney's office or the city's disclosure or bond counsel raise any concern. The city council will remember that it first heard this item a few weeks back. The item had been properly noticed a few weeks in advance. The city attorney's office did not voice those same concerns at that time. The city council had to wait until this morning when a memo was issued at 9:25 a.m. Don't be fooled by the fact that it's dated yesterday. it was not sent out till this morning. The problem with Mr. Aguirre's memo is not only that it's wrong, but that it is also strongly contradicted by the thorough and thoughtful legal opinion the city received from its bond counsel, Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood. After analyzing the transaction in a six-page opinion, the city's disclosure counsel, Ardo Becker, who is with us here today, concludes the proposed lease to be entered into for the proposed issue of lease revenue bonds is structured in compliance with long-standing case law.
As our bond counsel, let me just ask you again, you believe, standing here today, that you would advise us that this is a sound financing package?
This is a legal transaction.
You know, the city attorney hears the need that we need to be fixing our city, but not hearing the reality of the challenges that are in front of us. You know, and just as the mayor said, he's absolutely right. This is a last-minute campaign stop by the city attorney, and I really get tired of campaign speeches being made here on public television instead of out in public on the campaign trail where they belong. But let's just get to the substance. You know, this memo that we have, dated yesterday, delivered today at 9:25 this morning, just 35 minutes before the meeting started here, doesn't even have Mr. Aguirre's own name on it. And I know why. I mean, so much of this goes against all current reality. There's no legal principle here whatsoever. This is a regular tactic that I have watched now, month in and month out for almost the last 4 years, just to thwart the business of this legislative body and the city of San Diego, and I see it as disingenuous, I see it as dangerous, and downright destructive on the health of the city of San Diego. This memo says that we can't go forward unless we prove that some court of law has heard this exact case and approved of it. That is absolutely ludicrous. This is another maneuver, again, attempting to fool the public more than anything else.
Mr. Becker is so confident in his opinion that this morning in a meeting with my staff and Mr. Blake, Mr. Becker emphatically reiterated that every bond counsel up and down the state would give us the same opinion.